About is actually how did you guys get started? You're now stars of cosplay, or at least I know you. Some of you
did not name this panel.
I know.
I'd like to know who named this panel.
But it does actually go back to you guys are well known now. How did you guys start out with the whole thing? Where did you guys first get involved?
1, 2, 3, not it.
Oh God. I volunteer as tribute.
All right, tribute.
Do it, Keith, do it.
You know, and those kids would have got away with it too. You know, I got into this in the year of the, what do they call it? The computers are going to crash and things were going to, Y2K. I always loved Halloween, and dressing up was awesome, and making stuff was cool. And then somewhere along the line, decided to go to a local event. I had been going to cons just for comics and other things before. And first costume was Indiana Jones, and then the fever bit, and I've never looked back. And here it is. Been doing it for so long, I don't even remember.
RPF, did you get started with RPF before getting costumes, afterwards? Because that's a great resource for finding out about it. Was that an outreach from your working on costumes?
The RPF, and I originally started on a place called indiegear.com, which is basically an Indiana Jones message board resource. And so that's where I started meeting people who were also on the RPF. And so I discovered the RPF, which is the replica prop forum, and is now costumes and props. And that's kind of been the thing. I was a lurker for a long time before I started really building and making things.
Indiana Jones is such a gateway drug to cosplay.
Yes, absolutely.
Such a gateway drug.
Yeah, and even today, I'm actually, hopefully this year, I'm doing a new Indiana Jones version. I'm doing Last Crusade, because I realized how much I love that character and how much fun I had doing it. So it's kind of an anniversary way to bring it back.
You should cosplay Harrison Ford in a broken plane.
Too soon.
Too soon.
He didn't die, it's okay.
It's okay.
I said I could fly, not land.
I think it's just really funny. I'm just picturing Harrison Ford in his hospital bed, just like... So many jokes. So many jokes.
Yeah, at least he's still, kicking.
He's still kicking.
Butt.
He is still
Yeah.
kicking.
I mean, but yeah, I mean...
Who wants to go next?
Monica.
Monica.
Okay. Is anyone else thinking this room is way too big for what's
It's
happening
really
right now?
like intimidating.
Yeah, you guys can come closer.
There's like a billion chairs in here.
I can't see.
How did I get started? I started cosplaying in 2006, and I was 13 at the time, and I was a giant weeb. I was really into anime, and I stumbled across cosplayers.
This has changed how?
I know.
Taco.
I found cosplayers and stuff on YouTube, like Kingdom Hearts, because that was the big thing back in the day. And I was like, this is so cool. Like, people dress up and they do this, and I don't know at the time what possessed me to like buy a costume and start wearing it. But I guess like 9 years later, I'm doing this now, and I don't know why. It's just like it's fun. It's so weird. I'm like, yeah, I dress up as comic book characters. What about you? You as well?
I just realized that we have like a giant, we have TV screens.
Why are those in here?
That's amazing. I guess I just talked, so I guess I'll go
This is
next.
why you guys are so
That's your
far
turn,
back.
Jessica.
Darn it.
There's a runway. Like,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we have a runway. This
We
is
should
really
have a walk-off.
We should. I would.
Zoolander? Did you see Zoolander?
We need music though.
Don't. I'm sure they have music. That would immediately.
They were playing music before.
Yeah, no.
If they have music, you do it, a
Don't
turnabout.
test the gods of this room.
The gods of the panel.
Yeah. Oh gosh, how did I get into cosplay? So I was one of those kids who took spirit days in elementary school way too seriously. Like I was like, ooh, Prairie Day, let's pan for gold. I'm gonna come in this really authentic bonnet and apron and I'm gonna take my mom's Aztec jewelry. And all the other kids were like, I don't know, I just took my mom's like, I heart cooking, kiss the chef thing. So, yeah, kids didn't really like me that much. I also did watch a lot of Daria, which is why I have very little inflection in my voice. And I did a lot of theater when I was growing up too, and I got introduced to the Renaissance Fair when I was in high school, and my mom thought it was finally appropriate for me to go to something where people sang "Roll Me Over in the Clover," and I finally understood what that meant. And then finally, one of my friends was like, hey, did you know that there's a thing called San Diego Comic-Con and you can dress up as whatever you want? You don't have to wait until you audition and get whatever the part is that you want. And I was like, what? I can just cast myself in a role? So I started going to Comic-Con in 2006, back when you could still buy a ticket at the door. Screw that waiting room thing. And I have been cosplaying ever since, but I've been dressing up in costumes since I was a tiny little kid. And I don't really see too much of a difference.
Is this my turn? Are we going this way?
Yeah, unless you want to do the walk-off.
Oh, God. We'll save that for later. Let's see if we can do that later. So I got into cosplay. I grew up in LA, and I didn't have a whole lot of friends. And so I met some people on LiveJournal, and they were making a web series called There Will Be Brawl, which was like one of the first web series. And it was like high production value, and they're like, okay, look, we need a Malin. But we need a Malin that's a hooker. Can you dress up as a Malin hooker?
How old were you?
19. I was 19, and he was like, just show up like a sexy cowboy. And I went like way too far with it, and I was like, yeah, I got the fishnets, and I got really excited, and so I met these really awesome people, and we bonded almost instantly, and they became my friends group till now, still. And I remember there was a Halloween party. It was the first Halloween party with them, and I was really nervous, and I was like, oh God, they dress up. I want to do Left 4 Dead, but I'm afraid that no one's going to know it, Left 4 Dead. They're not going to know the characters. And my boyfriend at the time and I dressed up as Zoe and Lewis. And we're like, God, no one's going to know us. And we get to the party, and there's 7 other people dressed in Left 4 Dead costumes. And I'm like, yes, I found my people. And it pretty much just sort of evolved from there. I started going to cons and stuff, and it was really fun. Yeah. Abby.
So I was raised by cosplayers in a cave, and they taught me how to sew. I was a precocious theater brat, as my father likes to call me, from middle school all the way up through college, and I was always dressing up in costumes, like to the embarrassment of my parents. When Batman and Robin came out back in the day, I made a Poison Ivy costume, and I was like, I'm gonna wear this. My mother was like, over my dead body. So I wore it in my bedroom and pranced around to the soundtrack. No lie. There's probably a video somewhere, and I made my mother sign a contract that would never ever come out. So I started doing theater, did costuming in theater, and about the time that I stopped doing...
Walk off. Kidding.
Sounds like a monster.
Excuse you.
At the time I started doing theater, I found cosplay, but my dad raised me, so it was like Doctor Who, Battlestar Galactica, Star Trek, going to the comic books every Wednesday, reading all the Star Wars novels, like all of them, and then having a discussion about Star Wars. So it was just 2 halves of a whole coming together, and went to my first Dragon Con, and it was all over.
And then we died.
And then we died.
But we came back.
So you guys started at humble beginnings, but now you guys have tables and people come up to you that have seen your pictures online and they've become fans. What was the point where you guys kind of transitioned from being hobbyist cosplayer to, again, the tables, the kind of having a fan following? Was there a moment in time that it struck you that, oh hey, I've got fans, what am I going to do with this? Monica?
I won't really speak for myself, more just like what I saw it happening, and I think social media really transformed it, especially with the fan page thing, because people started like, I don't want people funding my personal page, so they made a fan page, and they didn't want it because they're like, that's weird, people are going to be fans of me. And then it started becoming this thing where people followed your work, and then they kind of made a separation of like, you're this cosplayer, this unattainable person, and that's why it's still weird for me, because I'm like, I'm no different from everyone else. I pee and poop too.
You do?
Like, I know, gross poop, guys. And it's weird that it's created this thing. Like I want to go around and I want to be like, this is what we do for cosplay. Like like kind of pass on the knowledge and stuff. And that's why when I'm on a panel called Stars of Cosplay, and I'm like, that's kind of weird, because I'm not. But I think social media really made that, like, started delineating kind of this, putting cosplayers in this weird, like, unattainable place, when all we do is sew, and like we're all nerds, like.
And cry.
Yeah, and cry.
Crying.
Cry while we're sewing.
Sometimes.
With the social media thing, I remember Facebook required that at one point in time. A lot of people had gone up and put their names like, I want to be like me, Zen, Dragon. No, you can't have that name.
Yeah.
And then they forced everybody, they started deleting accounts and forcing people to actually create fan pages. Most of us had never wanted something that had fan in the name of the title of the page, but it became a necessity. For me, I've been doing panels for a really long time, since I got involved with the RPF and File First and stuff, because we used to do like makers panels. And so that was long before, and then like what Monica said, over the last, I guess, few years where there's been a real big social media push and people can be seen literally all over the world, I think that starts to bring a little bit of notoriety. I don't know. I've never thought of myself as having fans. Maybe people who are fans of things I do.
But you're a star of cosplay.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I've always been a denizen of the internet. Even before I was doing cosplay, I had like a little anonymous blog, and I followed a bunch of people on Blogger, and a bunch of people followed me, and it just seemed like I was building communities, and I was involved in communities, and before I was in the entertainment industry, I was an archaeologist. And I would go to conferences and, what?
Indiana Jones.
Oh, we all dressed up as Indiana Jones to go to Crystal Skull, me and all of the archaeologists, and...
You're my favorite person.
What? Oh, thank you. And, I'm sorry, I'm an archaeologist.
You got a new wife now.
It's okay, I'm a historian, technically.
And our Rosemary Joyce, who's one of the leading experts in Mayan archaeology, she's on Obama's council. Harrison Ford's like writing down all of these Mayan things, and she looks at it and she's like, ha! So anyway, so before I'm doing cosplay, before I'm even doing video games and entertainment industry, I'm doing archaeology, and I'm going to conferences, I'm presenting papers, and people, followed my work, but they're not fans of me, they're just interested in what I was doing. I was, fangirling over certain archaeologists. I fangirl over, certain people in the cosplay world, but fandom to me are like intellectual properties. Like I'm a fan of things, of tangible objects. So I don't really consider I have fans. I consider that I am part of communities, and I think I have built a fun little community of people that I consider like my online friends that follow me on Twitter and Twitch and Instagram, and we have inside jokes, and I think that's awesome. But yeah, I am a little uncomfortable when people talk about me having fans. If someone wants to say they're my fan, I'm not gonna slap them in the face and be like, shut up, you, shut up. So, but it's not something that I'm gonna self-label.
You said it pretty perfectly. I feel pretty much exactly the same way. And for me, I feel kind of weird being up here, because for me, I'm still a hobbyist. Like, I'm not a professional cosplayer. I'm a host, and I love games, and I love game journalism, and like that's the path that I want to go down. And then cosplay is something that I just love to do for fun. So like to be here and to sell prints for me is like, I don't know, like I feel like I'm not supposed to. But the reason that I do it is so I can still continue to come out to cons, because it's like my favorite thing. This is like home for me. So basically I'm just fueling my own habit. But yeah, I definitely don't consider myself like a professional cosplayer at all. Just
I didn't even
I'm
make any of the costumes I'm wearing this week.
No, I know. I don't think I did. No, I didn't either. We're just dressing up for fun, So I guess that's it.
Hi. I have a saying that I always say on my public page, and I don't call it a fan page, I call it my public page. A fan is just a friend I haven't met yet.
Yeah.
So people who, I just haven't gotten to know you, and until I get to know you, then, you can be on the same place as my 13-year-old niece. And I think that's most of the thing about having a public page versus a profile, is because, you do have family members on your Facebook sometimes, or on certain areas of the internet, and I'm very protective over my little nieces and nephews. So that was my whole thing about dividing the two. But I think it's weird, because it's like we're all just geeks, and we're all just here because we enjoy something and we share something, and I think it's important, and that's one of the things I love about being at conventions. It's because you can see someone and be like, oh my god, there's a Castiel. And literally, if I say Castiel, I lose my poop. Oh, really? I love you.
We're Supernatural fans.
Super Hulock? Yeah. Yes. Anyways, but I mean, I think that's what's important about me is like we all share this, and this is, even though we might have more visibility than other people, we are still all exactly the same. Yeah. Words are hard.
Actually, so what cosplayers are you guys fans of? Fans of their work, or fans of their costumes, or their shots?
Svetlana.
Oh,
Kamui cosplay. Yeah. When she sent me a friend request, I was like, oh my god.
Buy her ebooks. They're also good.
I own all of her ebooks.
No, not you, but everyone. Buy her ebooks. They're also informative.
Yes. I think other than that,
This panel is brought to you by Kamui Cosplay.
CNC Cosplay, Chrissy Smith, she did an amazing Satsuki from Kill la Kill. Like, if anybody has seen that anime, it's very risque, but she took the armor, the Juketsu, the full version, and she committed. Like, there was her Heine, and she just committed, and I was like, yeah. But yeah.
see, I really am a fan, and you guys know these cosplayers, but like Yaya and Jessica, Jessica Nigri, and Jessica Marison. But I think what's really amazing is that they've taken cosplay and they turned it into a business. Like Yaya's she's so sweet, she's an amazing person, she's incredibly talented.
Are you wearing some Yaya tomorrow?
I am wearing Yaya tomorrow. She's figured out a way to make a life and support herself completely using these tools that she has, and I think that's so impressive. And Jessica, because if you see some of her earlier costumes, she was sort of a novice at sewing and crafting, and that's something I can relate to. And as time went on, she got better and better, and she's just like an amazing craftsman now, so I'm really impressed by that.
I love all of these people here. I also, one of my cosplay mentors and just fabrication in general, Evil Ted Smith.
Yes! He's got the best tutorials online.
He is the person who taught me how to make foam fabrication. Before that, I was like, foam's so stupid. And so go follow him on YouTube. He started his YouTube channel 8 months ago, and he already has 20,000 subscribers, and that's just like, that's really hard, you guys. That's really hard to do. So he is so good, and a lot of people do like ebooks, and they sell they sell tutorials for that, and he just gives it away for free, and all you have to do is subscribe, and it really helps him out. And his foam work is phenomenal. He works in the movie industry, and he's worked on a bunch of really great properties. I also just adore Chris, Ricky's husband, and I adore Brian, who is Yaya's boyfriend. I have to say, Brian gives me amazing pep talks every time I go to Yaya's booth. He's just, he's like, oh, Jessica, how are you doing? And I'm like, Brian, your hair is so fabulous. When are you going to cosplay something from Vampire, like some kind of Anne Rice book? And Chris, because he's such an amazing fabricator, both of them are, but also he's just an amazing human. I did this insane Skeksis costume, and I went all by myself to Ottawa, and it was a really stupid idea. And he basically was supposed to be Ricky's handler, and instead he was like, Jessica, you obviously need a lot of help. This costume weighs 70 pounds. And he helped me the whole time, and I was competing against Ricky, and I wouldn't have been able to do it if it weren't for Chris. So I think that that's what cosplay is all about, is it doesn't matter what's happening on the stage, it's all about the camaraderie backstage. So those are just a few people that I really respect and admire.
I've been around a while, and one of my early people that I really admired was Yaya Han. She always created these amazing, amazing things. And yet, even though she wasn't really part of the community that I was part of, which was a lot of just straight up crafters and makers of stuff, we like to replicate things from movies mostly. So, it's like, oh, I always wanted that one thing, that idol, or that, that Coronado cross or whatever. But she was making these full-blown costumes. But in today's day and age, I think one of my favorite people to watch their work, Fev Studios, out of Atlanta. She does amazing, amazing, amazing stuff. And she'll throw stuff up on Ustream and you can just sit there and watch her work, which is kind of neat. And Bill Duran of Punished Props. I like Bill because Bill has a lot of the same philosophies that I do about the community and the hobby, about it being a place for fun that everybody can participate in, but he's also a guy that is completely willing to share how he's learned how to do things, and much like Ted Smith, a lot of sharing of knowledge, and it's pretty cool.
Buy his ebooks too. Sorry.
I have to say my favorite costume prop maker is Harrison Cricks of Vulpin Props. He's also based out of Atlanta, so I could kind of creep on him. But he's just like, he puts so much dedication and all this months of work into the props that he makes, and the end result is more than perfect. And I don't my brain can't wrap around how he does that, because I always get tripped up by something and I'm like, I hate it, burn in a fire. And he just puts so much amazing work and effort, and he's just a cool dude. He's just yeah, I make things no pretension at all, and he's a cool fro and he's a corgi. So I'm totally behind that. If
any of you guys have watched different con photos from different events, at Dragon Con in Atlanta, the Marriott has this very, 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 very distinctive carpet. And Harrison and another couple guys dressed up as army men, essentially, and their camouflage was the Marriott carpet.
Didn't they get in trouble too?
It was so cool.
They actually got
they tried to sue them.
Yeah,
because they were using
by the Marriott
carpet.
Well, they put the carpet, they put the design up on Spoonflower. So it's actually Spoonflower who got the CND. God. But in any case, it was funny. But yeah, here are these guys that are looking like army men, snipers laying in the carpet, and they blended so perfectly. It was great.
And they had the Barbie car too.
He built a go-kart.
This year they had a
he
Jeep
built
car.
his own freaking go-kart, and it went something crazy, 30 miles an hour. Running around.
They started a whole movement. This year there were carpet ninjas. And,
oh my God!
All their guns were the same pattern.
There was a carpet Hawaiian shirts.
Dragon Con's amazing. Dragon Con's my favorite convention because of
Besides this one, of course.
Was that?
Besides this one, of course.
Besides this one, of course, yes, of course. But.
Well, you can always tell you've been doing conventions and stuff enough when you see pictures of cosplayers. I know what hotel that was taken at and what floor it was taken at.
Yeah.
I think based on the carpet or the paneling. Also, as we go along, we've got some mics up here as well. If there's any questions that people would like to toss out, otherwise we're just going to continue to have a good time chatting. Anybody? It's funny we're talking about having fans and stuff like that, but I can't tell you how many people that, I'm from back here in Kansas neck of the woods.
Come on down!
And people are like, wow, these awesome cosplayers, you know them. How do we go up and talk to them? Saying hi is a traditional good first step. And they're like,
also
really?
take
No, they're
bribes.
awesome people, go say hi.
Cookies.
We have some questions.
Hello. What did you use for the blood on your cosplay?
Real blood.
This is actually, what did we use? It's Krylon.
Yeah, it's Krylon's fresh scab, I guess is what they call it.
Yeah.
And it's a gel blood that when it dries, it has a wet sheen to it, but it's dry to the touch.
There's actually 4 different kinds. That's why I hesitated, because there was 4 pots in front of me, so I'm like, which one did I grab? And you apply it with it's a really prickly sponge, so that's how you get
Stipple
Sponge.
and you get it scratchy, and then you just let it dry. Don't touch it until it dries, otherwise it will go everywhere. And then remove it with either makeup wipes or you can alcohol, but I don't recommend alcohol on your face unless you're drinking it.
Okay, so I was wondering which means more to cosplay, the costume or acting like the character?
Can I? Does anybody? Sure. I think it's entirely it's up to you, because cosplay means something different to everybody. So, you know, for me, sometimes I feel shy acting as the character. Like, I can't do a Tenant accent at all, so I'm just gonna be me. But sometimes, I mean, it's entirely up to you, you know? I think it's every person has a different thing.
I try to practice, because a lot of people want to take a picture of you. So I try to practice my pose before I go to the convention. Oh, see? Nice. So I usually can't, like, people will be like, do a Dari impression. And then all of a sudden, even though I've watched every single Dari episode like 15 times, all of a sudden I can't say anything Daria.
All I have to do is just talk.
I know, I guess, well, but yeah, I usually just try to practice a pose in the mirror ahead of time. It's not vain, it's research, but yeah, you know, it's just up to you. It's whatever you want to put into it.
The debate when it comes to cosplay and costuming and what's what. Some people is like, well, if you didn't make the costume, you're not really a cosplayer. Some people are like, that doesn't matter, because nowhere in the term cosplay does it say you had to make it. It's costume plus play. And then a lot of people will be like, well, I don't act like the character. I'm like, I guarantee you, if you pose like Batman, even if you don't walk around going, where are the other drugs? If you don't do that, you're still technically playing. So it's really just a matter of your choice, though. Whatever you feel like. Whatever works for you. Some characters I'll get into, and other ones I enjoy the look of it, but otherwise I don't stick to the character.
Tony.
Well, yeah, Tony I get into, because it's fun.
For me, I have a tendency to, because I guess being a theater brat, get into character a little bit more, but it really depends on the character. When I'm wearing Starbuck from Battlestar Galactica, I apologize if you guys ever see me when I'm seriously. I get into a total belligerent mode of what the frack, what? You know, I just go kind of crazy. And when I'm in Tenet, when I'm doing my 10th Doctor, I don't know what's coming out of my mouth, but people think it's hilarious. So I just think it depends on you and your connection with the character and how comfortable you are projecting that outwards.
So when you're about to create like a new costume and you're picking out a character to do you always just do characters you know, or do you see one that maybe it's something you've never seen, but you're like, I really want to cosplay that, I need to like look into it, even though I've never seen that character before?
Yes, I've definitely gone to a con and seen something and I'm like, oh my god, that is so cool looking. And then I'll maybe watch the show and be like, yes, that is definitely really cool, and then I'll make a costume.
I feel like I haven't made a My Little Pony cosplay, but that's probably why I started watching My Little Pony. Like, everybody else is doing it, I kind of want to be a pony. Which one's my pony? And then I started watching. And I'm Scootaloo, yes.
For me, it's always been characters that I really like the character of. Although occasionally I'll see the look of something that I think is really cool. And then I'll start trying to figure out, well, what is that character? But most of the time, I mean, like, for example, this costume that I'm in now is from a TV show, I don't know. Who here watches Arrow? All right. And in the first season, Slade Wilson is on the island with Oliver. And it wasn't a character I initially thought of even doing. The more I watched the character, the more I listened to the accent, which I don't have at the moment, and I looked at the costume and the fun of basically destroying perfectly good clothing. It sounded like fun, and I really enjoyed doing it. So,
I think at the end of the day, you're the one putting all the work in the costume and paying for it. So it's no matter what your motivation, you could do. If you know nothing about it, you just like the design, that's totally fine. But if you're really into it, like all the more reason, right? And no one can tell you like, you're a fake geek girl, you're cosplaying that you don't know it. It's like, well, did you make it? Why do you care? Like,
I think there's also ways of getting into costuming because of that, or into different genres. I mean, I used to be terrified of horror movies. My parents would really let me watch them, and I was always scared of them growing up. And so I had seen the Jason, and Jess Negri had asked me, she was like, oh, do the costume with me, and I was like, okay. So I actually used this costume as a gateway to get over my fear of horror movies. And now I can watch all these things and I'm not afraid. So, I mean, I use that, but I've seen designs and I've just gone, I'm making that. I don't care. I'm making it, and then I will love the series. I don't care. And then I change it because the character creeps me out.
I have 2 questions. When you're making your costume, do you make the wigs yourself, or do you buy them, or do you just add to ones you've already bought?
Whenever I buy wigs, I usually try and find something color-wise and style-wise as close as possible. I've never really heard someone making a wig unless you take like the individual hairs and plug it, and that's kind of insane.
Or you Sharpie them like Becky.
Yeah, because there's already wigs out there, you know, and like there's so many colors, and like these days, like you can find anything, you know. So for the most part, I think most people just kind of get it and they style it if there's extra stuff to be added on. But there's so many colors and things available, like even like Rainbow Dash, people used to Sharpie dye the wigs, but now everyone's like Rainbow Dash, and there's rainbow wigs out there, so you don't even need to do that.
I've put wigs together, like if there's a couple different kinds of wigs. Right now I'm working on a She-Hulk, and while Arta Wigs is a perfect color, it's not the right front and it's not the right back. So I took the base wig and I'm adding wefts for it to make it really, really long, and I'm adding a lace into it and like actually like hand wefting it. So it is correct. But honestly, save yourself time and money and try to see what you can piece together. There's so many great tutorials out there that can help save time and effort and crazy.
Yeah, whenever possible. My theory is there's no real use unless you just really want to try to invent the wheel. There's always places to invest your time and energy into. And if somebody is really good at making Batman cowls, maybe go to that person to have a cowl made for you, because they're just really good at it. And plus, it helps them. So.
Yeah, it's good to support artists. I have handmade 2 wigs before for cats' costumes, and usually you have to make those from scratch. There's not that many people who make them. And that was one of the proudest things that I've ever made. So, there's no reason not to. It is very, very hard to make a wig.
It's time consuming. It's so much time.
It's very hard.
Yeah,
It's a craft in itself.
What's that?
It's a craft in itself.
Yeah, it really is. So usually, like you were saying about investing time in things, that's how I feel. Like I invest time in other things. And wigs, I usually sort of hire a friend who's really good at making wigs to do that for me. So.
My second question is, when you're cosplaying shoes, do you buy them? Do you make them? Do you make covers for them?
I think that depends on the character. I mean, honestly, most of the times shoes, there's so many styles out there. Between Amazon and eBay, you can find your styles. And you can make shoe covers for it just depends on the look and the character. These shoes, I found these in a thrift store in Berkeley, and they were like a taupe color, and there's this awesome paint called Angelus that will actually paint shoes without cracking, and so we painted them. So you can do stuff like that, but make sure they're comfortable. Don't do what I did and have numb toes after 4 days of Comic-Con.
They'll go numb after a while,
Yeah.
and they won't come back.
It also helps to buy used shoes, which, well, it may sound gross, someone else already broke it in for you. So I've done that in the past, like I found people's old shoes, that sounds gross, people's old shoes on eBay, and it's already broken in, especially if it has heels, and it makes it way more comfortable.
The thing about shoes too is I've watched people essentially build shoes from the ground up, and it really comes out of necessity. And a lot of times you'll go to a cobbler and you'll have them do it, because again, it is a craft, much like making wigs, that if you don't get it right, your feet are going to hate you. So if you're able to, find a good solid base shoe and then build around it.
Yeah.
And at least you know your base shoe is comfortable.
Thank you.
Who do you plan on cosplaying next?
Like 15 different people.
Yeah. I feel like as cosplayers, we all just have like a big folder in our computer of like things we want to make. And you'll see it, be like, oh my god, I told you to make that, and you just add it to the folder. And then like 5 years later, there's like 1,000 of them, and you're like, well, I don't know what I'm gonna make next. So
We were talking about doing Neopets fairies next, possibly. You're welcome to join if you want.
Are you doing? Oh my god, sorry, I get really intense about that.
So that's our plan, I think, for the next one. Well, mine at least.
She-Hulk, Lara Croft, Red Sonja.
Which Lara Croft?
I'm doing Adam Hughes' version with the latex. and
Oh
everything.
wow! Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I got the new rock boots, so we got most of it. Let's see, what else am I doing? oh, I'm doing an Elsa to his indie, and I'm not gonna let it
Every other
go.
cosplayer.
Elsa from Last Crusade of Indiana Jones. Not the Elsa you were thinking.
That's why it's funny, because she didn't let go of the Grail Cup, so
Although
I'm
if she
not
would
let
have
it
let
go.
it go.
Do you have any advice of being a cosplayer?
What type of
Have
advice?
fun. Just go out and do whatever you want, and don't let anybody tell you you're not cosplaying right. Just go have fun.
Just put on a costume and have fun. If you don't have a costume, just ask someone to borrow something, or go to the store and go to the thrift store or get something cheap and hot glue something together and put some rouge on your cheeks and put on a cape. If you can't afford to make a costume that looks like something, make an original character.
Yeah.
Just go do it. There's nothing stopping anyone from cosplaying. There's absolutely no rules. Even I wrote on a Reddit thread once. They were like, "How do you cosplay?" And I was like, "Well, you just do. There's no rules to say if a mall Santa says that they're cosplaying, they're cosplaying. The end." Like,
There are kids in the audience.
you would make a great Rainbow Dash.
Oh yeah, totally.
I already see
can
it.
see that. Have
Thank
fun.
you. In the next few, we'll have to
Thank
go.
you.
We've got 5 minutes. We got 5 minutes on the clock.
two
So
quick questions.
let's see how many we can get through.
It's the Riddler.
Do you have any techniques for time management in getting your costumes done before the con?
There's an app.
There's an app for that.
There is an app. There's actually someone developed a cosplay app. I don't know if I have it on my iPhone. It's called Cos Planner. And actually you can keep track of how much you spend, the time, the pictures, everything.
There's a little check mark, so when you're done with a particular item on the list.
I also use Evernote, and I put due dates, but I'm also anal retentive and OCD, so.
We actually have a whiteboard in our workshop that has all the things that we need to do by which dates. And then we start looking at it, like as the dates get closer, we sit down and we go, okay, what are we gonna do today? All right, we're gonna knock out boots, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, and then we get those cleared off the list. I'm sure I could speak for everybody here, while it very rarely happens, we would rather not wait till the last possible second. But inevitably, it always ends up being the last possible second.
I usually say set a deadline for yourself that's feasible, and before you start in the costume, if you've never made armor before, maybe not decide in 2 weeks to make Halo armor, and it's kind of I guess understand what you can make, and then once you kind of have that in mind, maybe go along through the time you have, if you have work or school, and kind of set out dates and be like, all right, this week I'm gonna do the wig, and this week I'm gonna do this, and kind of set yourself mini deadlines to get, and leave space for mistakes because they will happen, and just kind of know your limits. I'd say don't bite off more than you can chew. You'll hate yourself.
Remember the pie chart of the 3 elements of project management, out of which you can only have 2. So you can have good quality, you can have it be cheap, or you can have it fast.
Yeah.
And you only get to pick 2. So as you start thinking about your costume, if you need it really quick and you want it to be really high quality, it's going to cost you a fair amount of money. And so as long as you always have that in your head, then you can kind of plan things out.
Thanks.
First of all, Chloe, my wife cannot wait to meet you tomorrow.
What was that?
My wife can't wait to meet you tomorrow. But what my question is last year was the first year in about 15 years that I've been to a con. I've been a comic book geek my whole life, and I was just floored by the changes over the last 15 years, especially in cosplay. Tomorrow I'm going to be trying my first costume, but I'm kind of curious where you guys see over the next 15 years where cosplay goes.
Oh, it's going to be broad, whatever it is, because you have people with such talent and with such skills. They're coming out of the woodwork that now that we have, new tools and laser cutting and 3D printing and Worbla and thermoplay, whatever. I think it's just going to grow and going to be off the charts, and I can't wait to see it.
Cosplay has been around since the 1930s in terms of being part of sci-fi conventions. So if you think about the arc since then, and how fast in the past, like, you know, since the 30s to the 70s, and then the 70s to the 90s, and then the 90s to now, I think it's just we're at hyper speed. So it's exciting times right now.
I also think you're going to start to see everything goes in full circles, and so I think we're at that we're almost at the tipping point where we're starting to doing this, and by that I mean that we're going to start getting back into community and sharing methods and building and having a much bigger family. We're at that kind of thing where we're so up here, everybody knows what cosplay is. It's starting to get such a big thing, and people are starting to forget about that. And I'm starting to already see it kind of trickle backwards, which I think is good.
And unfortunately, we're out of time. You three ladies are still down there. They're all heading back to their tables right after this, I think. Come on by, ask your questions. They'd be more than happy to answer your questions.
We're in.
Awesome
we're at 722.
We're all
next to each other.
So come on up. They'll take care of you up there.
If you
Sorry,
have
we're
a
out of
question, just come on down.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I am too sexy for your party, too sexy